We find ourselves today in the book of Revelation, which is always a strange place to be. And yet I couldn't help but find myself drawn to that image. We find ourselves in this huge space. I can't tell if it's indoor or outdoor, except for that there is a lot of people. A lot of people, all robed in white, surrounding the throne of God, gathered together around God with these four creatures and angels, and singing, lots and lots of singing, glory and honor and wisdom and might be to God and the Lamb forever and ever. That sounds familiar. Amen. It's a strange image, and if I am truthful, I'm not quite sure what to do with that. It just seems so otherworldly and honestly just kind of weird. But I think it's worth noting that it was written in a time of great uncertainty. The world for the person in Revelation is falling apart. Up was not up and down was not down. You couldn't trust your neighbors. It was a strange and anxiety producing time. You know, one of those times when it's tempting to be divided, to put people in categories. Well, if you believe this, then obviously you're that. And if you're that, then we can't be friends. Or if you believe that, then you must be this, and so we can be friends. Right? Weird, right? Strange to think that that could be a possibility at any time in history. Yeah. Time in history like today, where family members, my own family members, there's things that we just do not talk about. I know that for some of us gathered together for this worship, that there's been real heartache and misunderstanding and strain on friendships and relationships and family all around the question of what is right and what is wrong and who are you for and who are you against. And so it's worth spending a little bit of time in this image from Revelation, because I think we're living in not the same time, but a time divided, a divisive time, a time of uncertainty and anxiety. And so when we look at this image, there are two things worth noting. One is, in a time of us and them, you'd think it would be a lot of people who looked a lot the same, from the same country or nationality or race or the same group. But no, the image we have in Revelation is the host of people arrayed in the same outfit, or at least the same color, but they're people from all nations, all tribes, all peoples, all languages. Can you imagine it? This is not a monochromatic one language. This would be all glory and honor in all sorts of languages and voices, low and high and in between, all sorts of genders and colors and hairdos and beings. This is the image we have in Revelation. This is an image of heaven I can get on board with, worshiping day and night. But being with all these people from all these nations, united around God. Now this is exciting. All these people, especially in a time when we feel like we're pushing people away and making division Here is an image of the whole world, the whole earth united. And that's the second thing worth noting is that we are united in this picture, in this image, in this revelation. We're united around something very good. Not an us and them, but rather it's God who gathers all people to God's self. God's goodness draws people in. We hear that God is making all things new, or God reconciles all things, the earth and all people, into God's self through Jesus. We have an image of God who unites the peoples of all the earth. Isn't that good? Isn't that good news? That God is so much bigger than this moment in history. We have an image of the cosmic God uniting the people from all time and all place. I heard a friend tell a story on Facebook that she was getting caught up and anxious with the upcoming elections and the fires and the hurricane, all the things was just surrounding her, and she's getting anxious. And a wise friend said to her, when I get caught up in the things of the day, I look out my window, this is in Alaska, and I see the mountain range there, and I think, how long have those mountains been there? My friend looked it up, 50 million years. 50 million years, these mountains that were pushed up by tectonic plates have stood. Well, human beings have had their big events and their lives have come and gone, and yet here this mountain range stands. How much more so for God, who is so much more grand, who is cosmic God of the universe, God who is so much bigger than this moment and all the things. God so much bigger. And today I think it's good, it's wise to remember that God is so much bigger than this moment. And that God is the one who draws all people into God's self. Now, the other thing worth noting is in this grandeur of God, this cosmic God, larger than life, the one who is so much bigger than this moment, God also is very, very personal. You've got this lamb and God at the center with countless people all around, and yet somehow God is able to see you, to see each one, to wipe away the tears from each face. God, this cosmic force, God, this being so much bigger, stoops to tend to the needs of those gathered, to make sure that they have water from the spring of life, that they are protected, they are known, they are loved and cared for. In these days, it is good to hear that God, who is so much bigger than this moment, is also here in this moment, tenderly, personally active in our world today, in this moment of history, and God doesn't walk away. I mean, I would, but God doesn't. God doesn't give up. God is persistent. God looks at this world, and this wild, wicked, beautiful world, and God draws closer. And all of what might unfold or is unfolding around us in these days, God draws near. and God draws near so that you and I might know God's love. In a world, this wild world, God doesn't turn away, but yet God sends God's own Son, Jesus Christ, so that we might know God's love, that you and I might know personally the way of Jesus, the way of God, the way that is echoed in Jesus' Sermon on the Mount, the way of mercy and tender, persistent kindness, of goodness that does not give up. God does not give up on the standard of goodness, but persists with love and mercy and courage. And so, children of God, people of God, held together in these wild days by God's grace and kindness and goodness, let's try to be signs. Let's try to be people who are good and work and persistently cling to goodness, to kindness and justice and mercy and grace, because our world needs it. And if you are finding that you are in need of that kind of goodness and grace and love, may you rest in God's mercy and God's goodness that's so much bigger than today, even bigger than the election on Tuesday, so much bigger than this moment in history. Amen.